Hey everybody, Riot Mort here, and it is time as we head for the mid-set of Dragonlands, and we head to PBE tomorrow. It's time to do a rundown of all the things you can expect as we go to PBE for this mid-set expansion. Before I get started, I'm the one presenting this here in the video, but I want to take this time to remind and thank all the hardworking people that bring this possible. Our set lead Julie, Witty, Sam, Mindy, Brad, Philip, Kent, the rest of the design team, not just the designers. We've got the art team who makes everything look awesome, made this cool, unique dragon you're going to see. We've got the engineers who make it all possible, the production team that brings it all together, the QA staff that makes sure it all comes to you in a good sign, and everyone else on the TFT team. So please remember, this is not a one-person show. This is a team that is working their butts off to bring you TFT. Cool. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the mid-set. So first half of Dragonlands happened, we learned a lot, and now it's time to reveal the mid-set expansion. We are going to the Uncharted realms, where some things are different, lots of cool twists, and a lot more dragons because it's still part of Dragonlands. So what does that mean? Let's dive right in. First thing we do is we have to say goodbye. Now, as always, it's important to remember that we don't look at traits and go, oh, these were the bad traits. Really, it's about constructing what makes sense for our new set, what fits the theme, what works, and what we have in mind. So this time, the traits getting removed are going to be Revel, so we'll lose Tom Kench, Jinx, Corki, and Sona. I think Corki definitely made his mark on the first half of the set, was there for a lot. Sona, maybe not so much, but a good support unit. Legend is going to be leaving, Anivia and Ornn. Volibear sticking around, we'll talk about him later. But Anivia going to be going, Legend's going to be going away. Pretty interesting trait, honestly, and I think we could revisit that kind of format. It wasn't a bad trait by any means, just didn't fit this set. And then finally Trainer. Trainer is getting removed. We'll talk about why later. But that means we're losing Heimerdinger, Tristana, Lulu. They'll be gone, and so no more early Trainer building up that Namzi. In addition, we're also removing a bunch of champions from traits that may be sticking around. Some of these may not surprise you. Some of these are for, reasons that they didn't work. Some are for reasons where we wanted to kind of mix it up a bit. So we're losing Tarek, Aatrox, Ashe, Kayn, Nami, Shen, Thresh, Elise, Alawi, Ryze, Swain, Nico, Talon, and Pyke. Of these, I'll say I think Nico is probably the one I'm the most sad to lose. I think there's some cool stuff we can do with that Nico transforming in the future. Otherwise, honestly, a lot of these are it kind of worked out that these are the ones that really never took off or were just kind of annoying. Shen in particular, I think a lot of people had some frustrations with. But, so they'll be going away, obviously to make room for lots of new content. So, what new content do we have for the mid-set? First off, let's talk about dragons. Obviously, it's Dragonlands. There are a lot of dragons. The 7 dragons, none of them were removed, but we're adding 5 more and making a very big change to the dragon trait. Now, it still works the same in that a dragon takes up 2 slots, and that dragons will provide +3 to the trait that's marked, so Deja still gives 3 Mirage. But the big difference here now is you can play as many dragons as you want. There is no limit to how many dragons you can play. If you want to play an Idis frontline with a Deja backline, cool, you go right ahead. In addition, not only can you play them, but you're actually incentivized to play them if you want. The dragon trait is actually a trait now that scales 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now at 1, it's gone down a bit. Excuse me. And it's 500 health, but then you can give them some extra armor and MR, some bonus damage, just a small amount. Now, if you're willing to run 4 dragons, you actually get +1 team size. And what this means is you can put in a 4th dragon and have an extra slot. So at level 8, you can run 4 dragons and an extra unit. And then if you go to 9, you can actually run 5 dragons. You can have a 5 dragon comp. That's a pretty cool fantasy if you want to do that. In addition, dragons were pretty expensive units, and that kind of led to a lot of situations where getting enough economy to hit them and roll down for them and stuff was really hard. So we're actually lowering the cost of dragons in the mid-set. So you can see here, the 8 cost dragons are being reduced to 7, and the 10 cost dragons are being reduced to 8. This should make it a lot more possible to do your roll downs at level 8, level 9, and actually hit the dragons and be able to enjoy their power. Now, obviously, with the cost reduction has to come a power reduction. And so in this case, we're making some adjustments here. I'm not going to go over every patch note, but the TLDR here is all the dragons are going down in power. And the thing to remember is this is from their 12.16 version, where they were already some of these were already being nerfed. The only one to really call out here is Deja. Deja's getting a bit of a rework, nothing crazy. She's still going to work the way she did before, but Deja now has 0 AD and doesn't do AD damage. She throws out the passive, still does that magic damage, it still shreds MR, still does her big wave. But what this will help with is things like the Whispers emblem. Instead of stacking 6 times per auto, it'll only stack 3 times. That should help make this be more in line. Otherwise, a lot of nerfs you'd expect, a lot of health. And so let's take like Xiaoyu as an example. Xiaoyu is losing 50 health on top of the 200 health from the trait, as well as a bunch of AD. And so a Xiaoyu on like 2.5 to 3.1 won't be quite as big a spike as it was before. I'm trying to think. Other ones to really call out here. Ao Shen's mana cost goes down from 200 to 175. So not quite as hard to get that Ao Shen cast off, but it will not quite be as powerful in board wiping as it was before. Should open up some new play. But yeah, otherwise the dragons you expect, just not quite as big a power spike as they were before. In addition, there's actually new 6-cost dragons. These are 6-cost dragons that are in like the 3-cost bucket. You can get them. 2 to go over here. One I think you'll be really excited about. The first of which is Zippy. Zippy is a guild dragon, so gives +3 guild. Rolls around, does some physical damage. Kind of a damage, melee hybrid damage. Can do some tanking. I recommend things like Bloodthirster and Titans. But yeah, Zippy's a pretty cool dragon. But the more interesting one I think is Namzi. Namzi has grown up from the trainer trait, and Namzi is a playable unit this time. Namzi's a dragon. What this means is twofold. First off, you can put items on Namzi. Complete with Namzi has a new spell. The one thing that's a little tricky is that Namzi's not really a frontliner. You want to put Namzi in the back. They have 3 range. They're kind of like an AP caster more than a tank, so don't mistake Namzi for a tank. But the other cool twist is that they are a prodigy, and they've grown up, they've learned their lessons, they're a prodigy dragon. And what that means is when you place them, they will summon one of their old trainers. So for example, you can see here you place Namzi, and you get a Lulu, or a Tristana, or a Heimerdinger that have been appropriately rebalanced as summons. You cannot put items on the summons. But what's really interesting here is every game, Namzi's different. For those of you that played back in set 2 and remember Kiana, Namzi's kind of like that. Every game, Namzi will either be an Evoker, or a Cannoneer, or a Mage. It'll be different every game. And so let's say it's a Mage game. You can buy Namzi in the shop, place Namzi on the board, you'll get Namzi and Heimerdinger, and have 2 Mage. So if you want 2 Evoker, you can place Namzi in the Lulu. So pretty interesting, changes the game every time, changes how you play Namzi. I'm personally a big fan of Evoker Namzi, but really they can all work and do some pretty cool stuff. Cannoneer Tristana also passively gives Namzi some extra AD, so you can activate some higher tiers of Cannoneer. But yeah, Namzi's a pretty cool dragon, and like I said, being able to put items on Namzi, pretty fun. In addition, one of our premier new dragons here is Terra. Terra is an 8-cost dragon. The only trait they have is Monolith, and what you can see here is, you can see on the GIF, is that when you place Terra on the board, you will get 3 mountain hexes. These hexes are always in the same spot. They do not change per game. It's always the same triangle formation. And whatever 3 units you put in there get 15% damage reduction. So this is a really good way to power up your units. You can put Terra in the hexes as well, so it can make Terra tanky. Terra's not quite as tanky as, say, an Itis, but Terra's spell actually scales with armor and MR. It's kind of a front AoE Earthquake kind of move. Pretty cool. So while it might not be as solo tanky as Itis, it provides a lot more utility with the Monolith and that extra frontline damage. So definitely check that out. Probably one of the most impressive looking dragons, and I just love showing off this really cool intro animation that our team did. So that's Terra. In addition, there are two major new traits to talk about. The first is Lagoon. Lagoon is sort of the water dragon trait. With our new dragons come new verticals that they empower. Lagoon's pretty simple trait. It gives some AP and some attack speed. The more you get, the more AP and attack speed. Pretty basic. But what's interesting is you also get a Sea Stone on your board. And what this Sea Stone does is as your Lagoon units cast, it'll start counting up. And the higher it counts up, it'll start spitting out rewards. What those rewards are, you'll have to wait and see. But you can use this to generate some extra econ, some extra units, some extra items, some more. You'll have to wait and see. But generally the idea here is how high can you get your Sea Stone up to? It's kind of the high score augment, so definitely try to see how many casts. Blue buff and Shojin are really good for these characters. But yeah, you've got Malphite, the tank bruiser. Some of you may remember Malphite, but this time he can cast a spell again. Talia is one of my favorite one costs. Kind of reminds me of Ziggs in the sense that their spell does miss a lot, but it also hits really hard. If you need like a one cost to take down an early tank, Talia can do some wicked damage. Kaisa, I think a lot of people will enjoy as well. It's kind of a two cost take on the Kaisa missiles. Can really burn down. It stacks up over time, so the longer the fight goes, the more damage Kaisa does. Zac is a Lagoon Guardian. Kind of does an AoE splash and heals up. So with some AP and some tankiness, can really heal up. Seraphine, pure utility here, provides a shield and on-hit magic damage to everyone nearby. Also an Evoker, can get some pretty good casts off. Zeri is kind of an AP Cannoneer comp, can get some pretty cool laser shots. Nyla is a assassin, really fun, jumps to the backline, does some autos, and then does a really big hit where she dashes around. It's a single target hit, but if it hits a unit with a shield or it kills the unit, she refreshes it and can keep dashing around. So really good against comps that might have high shields. A pretty cool, healthy assassin. And then finally, Sohm, your 7-cost Lagoon Mage Dragon, has a 40 mana cost, so definitely want to get a blue buff on Sohm. And the idea is we'll shoot their water lasers, you'll want to check it out, and after I believe it's 4 casts, we'll then erupt geysers under everyone that's been hit, and can do some pretty big damage. So Sohm's definitely kind of that 4-cost blue buff AP carry you're really going to want. And so this should be a really fun trait. Let us know how high a score you can get with Lagoon. Alright, Darkflight. Darkflight's probably our more advanced trait that we're adding this time. There's only 4 units, one of which is Tyrant Swain. Swain has decided to become full dragon, starts in dragon form, is a dragon. It's Tyrant Swain, along with Aphelios, Rel, and Rengar. Aphelios is kind of a utility cannoneer, not the highest DPS, but has an AoE stun. Rel, very tanky, does a little bit of magic damage, but also buffs herself and a nearby ally. And then Rengar. Some of you may remember Rengar from set 1. This is a bit of a twist on that. An assassin jumps to the backline, will jump to a key target, stab him a bunch of times real quick. So pretty fun assassin. But the real cool twist here is that Darkflight, what happens is there's a hex in the 3rd row middle that will be summoned if you have at least 2 Darkflight. You can put a unit in that Darkflight hex and they will be consumed. They'll die. They'll be instantly removed from combat. So let's say you put a Twitch there. You still get the traits from Twitch, the guild, the attack speed, but that Twitch is deleted. Okay, and by deleting that Twitch, you give everyone bonus health. So you can get a lot of health pretty early, actually. A Rel with 600 bonus health in the early game is pretty good. But more importantly, one item on that Twitch will be shared amongst all Darkflight units. So for example, if you put a Titan's Resolve on that Twitch, it'll jump to the Aphelios and Rel. So for example, here's kind of what that looks like. You can see there's a Sejuani with a Titan's Resolve. It gets deleted, and now Rel, Swain, Rengar, and Aphelios all have Titan's Resolve. So pretty cool, good way to spread items. Now, the one thing to note before anyone asks, the thing to note here is emblems and non-craftable items are corrupted when they're copied and instead become Darkflight Essence. Darkflight Essence is an item that's kind of weak, but actually kind of acts like the old Darkstar, where the more people that die wearing it, the more powerful it becomes. So if you want to create like a stronger item with a solo 1v8 kind of like Swain or Rengar perhaps, you can go that route. It's usually not worth it, though. There are some cool combos I'm sure everyone's dying to try. 4 Zephyrs. Are you going to try, 4 Zerat portals, things like that? Definitely try them out. Let us know. Lots of pretty cool combos of what you can do and which item you can spread out. So definitely check that out. But yeah, Darkflight. Pretty cool new vertical. In addition, there are some other new champions. Some of these are reprints and some of these are new. Nasus is the 1 cost. Some of you may remember. Gains some bonus health, does some AoE damage. Pretty cool 1 cost Guardian. Powers up Shimmer Scale, gives them a little bit more of a tanky frontline. And now you can run Nasus plus Itis to get Shimmer Scale Guardian, so that's pretty cool. Wukong, Bonky Kong is back. Yes, this is Bonky Kong. Jade Warrior has that exact same 50 mana spell, that bonk, big AD damage, does a little bit of a stun. So pretty cool, check that out. Jax is also a reprint, does the AoE dodge and then slams. Only dodges for himself though, it's not like Shen. But can do some decent damage. Good. It's also Jade Shimmer Scale, which means that opens up that tree a little bit. You can actually run, a Xiaoyu, an Itis, and a Jax, and you almost have, 5 Shimmer Scale, 5 Jade. So that opens up some new trees we haven't seen before. Lux is an Astral Mage replacing Nami. Lux has a pretty simple spell, shoots a line, kind of like her Q in League of Legends. The first target it hits takes some pretty big damage. It's a pretty powerful spell. After that, though, everything that gets hit after it takes a much weaker version of the spell. So it's kind of a good solo target nuke with a little bit of bonus damage. Zyra is a reprint. For those who remember, it's the line spell. So if you're one of those people that's trying to run 6 Swift Shot in the back line, Zyra is probably going to be your nemesis. We'll do that AoE stun and damage. It's a Whispers Evoker also, so if you get like 4 Evoker going, you can get some annoying AoE, so make sure to position around Zyra. Rakan is a new champion, bit of a twist on an old classic. Rakan is a Ragewing Guardian. Does the spell where he dashes around and disarms people he passes through, but then during the Ragewing state, he gains a shield, and every auto attack he does makes that shield even bigger and bigger and bigger. And so there's actually Ginsu's Rakan builds you can try that can get pretty fun. But Rakan should be a very unique champion who's Guardian Mystic. And so for those of you that want to run that 6 Guardian, 2 or 3 Mystic build, Rakan's definitely going to be the key to that. Graves is a Tempest Cannoneer. Admittedly, he's pretty hard to use with both Tempest and Cannoneer. But he's one of those champions in the 4-cost side that can honestly do a lot of damage without his traits, let alone with. He's a kind of a bruiser in a sense. He has a short range. You actually want to put him on the front line. But every time he autos, it's like he shot almost 4 big autos that can cone up. So he can do a lot of burst damage, scales very well with AD. Then he dashes and gains some armor and MR. So he can be really good with Bloodthirster, Titan's Resolve, plus something else, and does a lot of damage. So don't underestimate Graves. Jace is a new champion. Starts in the backline, is an AP champion. Once he reaches full mana, switches to his hammer form, dives in, does a big AoE, big magic damage. Then from the rest of the fight is melee, and will repeated cast, will do an AoE slam, gain a shield, and do pretty well. So definitely the 4-cost AP if you want to try Jace out. And then finally Pantheon. Pantheon's an interesting champion. If you remember, from I believe it's set 5, he has the rapid fire spears that are pretty cool. But has been buffed. He also has a passive 25% damage reduction that's then doubled during his spell, so he's very tanky. I actually don't think he's that great of a warrior, so don't think about warrior Pantheon, but Whispers, you give him tanky items, and you run 6 Whispers, and he hits lots of things with his spell, you can stack that Whispers real high. So Pantheon definitely looking to be the 4-cost tank of either Whispers, or even he can be the tank for warrior that, maybe supports an Olaf, or a Yone or something like that. So those are some of the other new champions that you can check out. Then we have a few trait adjustments. Now, the biggest of which we know, this is a hot topic, Astral. Astral certainly was problematic for a variety of reasons, but most specifically was the idea that basically every 10 gold you spent, you got some sort of return, whether it was guaranteed 3-cost units or items or whatever. And having that sort of guaranteed return created the situation where we couldn't make it be very satisfying returns, right? You can't spend 10 gold and then get 10 gold. That would go infinite. and that's ignoring all the bugs and things like that. So we've reworked Astral. It's actually a much simpler spell, or simpler trait now. And that after every combat, you get an orb. If you're running 3 Astral, you get an orb. What's in that orb will increase in quality the higher star level you are. So for example, if you run 3 1-star units of Astral, you're probably getting 1 gold, maybe a Skarner if you're lucky. If you're running a team of like that you see on the board here, you're getting like 8, 10 gold a round, maybe even more. I won't spoil all the surprises, but definitely a fun reroll trait. And the nice thing here is because it's not a guarantee that you're going to get your 3 stars, we can actually treat Astral units like real units and give them the power they deserve. So all the Astral units also got slight buffs because they're real units now. So expect to see buffs to Vlad, Skarner, Nidalee, and Varus. So that should be pretty cool. And so if you're one of those people that likes a reroll comp, Astral might still be for you. So, cool. In addition, I'm going to go through these pretty quick, but lots of either breakpoint adjustments or slight adjustments. Assassin, slight buff at 2, pretty neutral at 4. The big thing here, though, is that there are only 4 assassins. This makes 6 assassin pretty hard to hit now. And so 6 assassin is very powerful. It gets to be 75% crit chance and crit damage. And this is important because there's one other change we'll talk about later that affects assassin. But yeah, assassin 6 is now kind of one of those big chase traits like 6 scale scorn. Cavalier got another Cavalier in Rel, so it's actually much easier to build. But because it's much easier to build, the power has to come down. So it's now a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but the power went down at pretty much every level. So you won't get as tanky just by putting in 2 Cavalier. You'll get some tankiness, but you'll need to invest if you want that full extra. Bruiser, we're nerfing 2 very slightly from 200 to 180, but because there are less Bruisers, it's generally harder to run in the late game and harder to hit those peaks. So 6 and 8 get another buff. 8 especially is now at 900 health, 1800 for the Bruisers, and honestly, it might still need to go up even more. So if you want to go that 8 Bruiser route, you can. It's pretty hard to hit now, but it got some extra power because of that. Cannoneer gets reformatted. It's now a 2-4-6, so it's actually a little harder to play. Pretty easy to slot in 2, much harder to slot in 4. The thing to note here, though, is remember, there are games where Namzi and Tristana are there as Cannoneers, which makes it much easier to hit 6. So definitely recommend in the games where Namzi is a Cannoneer, that's when you might want to invest in Cannoneer because you can easily hit 4 and have that extra power. Dragonmancer goes from 369 to 2468. This makes it much more interesting. You can run 2, like say Jade, Karma and Set early and be able to run that Dragonmancer hero. But if you invest more, you can run like 4 and 6 and 8 and things like that. 8 is still this ridiculous chase trait if you can hit it because it requires 2 emblems. But should open up some options and should make it a little easier to invest into those Dragonmancers. Obviously, power has been balanced accordingly. Guild's pretty similar. It's still the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's just 2 things to note here. First off, Zippy counts as 3. So Zippy is a very big jump. You can go from, 1 Sejuani, 2 Twitch to 5 very quickly with Zippy. And then the other thing is without Rise and Talon, the stats have been changed. So Zippy actually gives armor and MR, which was not a stat Guild gave before. And then Jace actually gives AD and AP. So Jace is definitely the thing you want to, if you want some offensive power, give your whole team that AD and AP. So Guild's still very powerful. Nothing's really changed other than Zippy's there. So Guardian is now a 2-4-6-8. There's an extra Guardian, so it's much easier to hit 4 early. With that comes a bit of a power decrease. So you'll see that 2 and 4 and 6 have all been reduced. 8 is a bit of a chase trait. Honestly, this number might go up, but 8's pretty hard to hit. If you can hit it, you get some big shields. Evoker went from a 2-4-6 to a 2-3-4. You'll see here it's been nerfed a little bit. I mean, still good at 2, but now it's 4-6-8. Again, thing to note here is Namzi. Namzi plus Lulu, that's already 2 Evoker. You want to run Namzi, Lulu, and Zyra. You've already got 3. So it's actually pretty easy to hit 4 Evoker in a Namzi game. No crazy chase trait because of that, but yeah, Evoker will definitely help you cast quite a bit. because remember, that's 8 mana whenever anyone casts on any side of the board, and that can lead to some pretty cool rapid cast moments. Jade goes from 36912 to 3579 because there are less units. Jade's definitely going to be a little harder to play. You've lost that easy front line of Nico, but you've still got Soraka, you've still got Gnar, you've got Jax to extra help, and Shiou's still strong. Because of that, 357 actually ends up kind of similar to power to 6-9 because it's harder to hit. So you can get a pretty strong Shiou with like 5 Jade plus some other stuff. And so hopefully Jade won't just be this straightforward put in 9, win the game kind of comp, and will actually have some depth to the comp that you should be excited about. Ragewing is another big one that got changed. Went from a 369 to a 2468. So splashing in 2 Ragewing. I know everyone's going to want to splash Xayah and Rakan. It's just too fun. But yeah, you can run 2, 4, 6, 8. I think 4 is pretty easy. 6 is obviously when it starts spiking. Remember, Shyvana counts as 3. So it's easy to run like Shyvana plus Hecarim, and you've got 4 Ragewing for your Shyvana. So a lot of cool options there. Again, should add some depth. Scale Scorn. Nothing's really changed with Scale Scorn. Just one call out here is that with obviously all the dragons coming down in health, we still want Scale Scorn to be that extra 20% DR when the enemies are, you know, the dragons. And so that 2200 has become 1900 health. So it's just easier to get that Scale Scorn power. Shapeshifter went from a 246 to a 24. Obviously a lot harder to activate, a lot less options. Because of that, it gets a bit of a power spike. So 2 goes from 40 to 50, but 4 goes from 90 to 125. I think this will make Shapeshifter Soul and Shapeshifter Heart, for example, very good. But yeah, if you want to run 4 Shapeshifter, you can get a lot of bonus health. Finally, we have Swift Shot. Swift Shot went from a 246 to a 2345. With one other change, which I'll talk about a little later. That's really important. But this should make it a lot easier to flex between not just 2 and 4, but maybe 3, maybe 4, things like that. Numbers are still being finalized here, but yeah, should make Swift Shot a little easier to play. And then finally, Warrior. Warrior has one big change. So there's some number changes in here, but there's a bigger change that's important to talk about. There was an issue where a Warrior proc could not chain proc itself. That was never intended, and if you do the math, that actually means it's proccing much less than 50%. So we've addressed that, and so Warriors will actually proc quite a bit more often and actually be able to string itself. This should be a pretty sizable buff to Warrior, and hopefully bring them into the front light, along with some other changes. So, yeah, and now they have a front line too. They've got that Pantheon, so. Some other champ adjustments, just some real minor stuff here. Senna gets some AD scaler, just some slight adjustment. Honestly, you probably won't even notice it, but it goes in line with our AD changes, making that 3-star Senna scale a little bit better. Set is really powerful with 2 Ragewing and 2 Dragonmancer. He was dominating way too much, so we had to bring his power down just a little bit because that much extra flexibility in the early game was turning just Set 2 into a powerhouse. Braum actually gets a DR nerf here. We're bringing down a lot of the power, and Braum getting 90% DR plus more sometimes. It's just a little too much, so going down 10% at all levels. Gnar is a champion that with Jade getting a little harder to play, we wanted Gnar to still be a backbone of both Jade and Shapeshifter, so Gnar actually gets a bit of a buff. More base HP, and when he transforms, more AD that you can scale with things like Dragonmancer. Hopefully some Gnar carry fantasies become more possible here. Yone, nothing crazy to talk about here, just some AD scaling, no big deal. Olaf gets a pretty big buff here, actually. We want Olaf's spell to hit a little harder and go in line with our AD scaling that we're talking about here. And so Olaf's spell goes from 200% to 260, 270, 280. So remember, this is just the damage on his actual spell in that hit. Nothing too crazy, but should let you chunk some things. And then finally, Volibear. This is probably the biggest change. Volibear obviously lost a trait, lost legend. This reduces his potential power quite a bit. So to make up for that, we need to buff him. So he gets some base HP, some base armor and MR, some base attack speed, and a little bit more health on transform. This should make up for the fact that he lost legend, and hopefully we still see some 6 Dragonmancer Volibears be scary. We want him to be a 3-cost carry, run him in Shimmer Scale, things like that, but this should make up for that. So, cool. Alright, time to talk about the Treasure Dragon. That's it for champions and traits. The Treasure Dragon is still around. Still happens on 4.7, but it only happens in 40% of games now, not 100% of games. So if you get the treasure dragon, again, 40% of games, nothing's changed. Still the same treasure dragon, still the same tables, everything you've come to expect. But in 30% of your games, you will get the Order Treasure Dragon. The Order Treasure Dragon can clearly be seen by that awesome art and VFX that our team did with that glowing yellow orb. And the Order Treasure Dragon basically guarantees you a Radiant item. There's a few exceptions in there we'll talk about, but generally you're going to get a Radiant item. We're talking like 98% of the time in those rolls. So you can use this to power up your units and figure out which Radiant item makes sense and start making some hard decisions. If that bow finishes the Ginsus you really need, but you don't need Radiant blue buff, do you roll? Do you think about it? Do you greed for a Radiant Ginsus? What do you do? So this should add some cool power spikes and some depth to the Treasure Dragon on 4.7. Now the other 30% of the time, so we got 40, 30, and 30, is the Chaos Treasure Dragon. The Chaos Treasure Dragon can be seen again with those awesome VFX arts made, with the purple, scary danger. And there's still usually one component, so you can still kind of plan for those components you're looking for. But otherwise, it's kind of a mix of a lot of different stuff here. For example, you can see here, there's a target dummy. Cool, you could actually get a target dummy without an augment. Emblems can show up here. Orn items can show up here. It's pretty different. Again, generally all the outcomes are still pretty balanced with each other, but it's just a little more chaotic and probably the hardest one to plan for, because you have started having to evaluate, is 3 full items better than an Orn item in a component? I don't know. You have to figure that out. And so you'll have to make some tough choices if you really want to optimize the Chaos Dragon, but that's what TFT is all about. Adapting to the unforeseen that shows up in your face. So yeah, that's a little bit of our mechanics twist this set. You'll be able to see those 2 new Treasure Dragons in 60% of your games. So check those out. On the item side, nothing too crazy, but one big one I think everyone's excited to talk about. Frozen Heart is gone. No more Frozen Heart. No more Assassin Frozen Heart. No more of that cringe. It's been replaced with Protector's Vow. Protector's Vow is a pretty cool item, actually. It grants 15 starting bonus mana. No big deal. Then once per combat, when you drop below half health, allies within 3 hexes gain a 20% health shield for 3 seconds. So it's like a mini locket for your team. But everyone who also got that shield gains 30 armor and MR for the rest of combat. Really good for, like, you can put it on some assassins, you can put it on your melee team like your warriors, however you want to do it, but basically get that to proc pretty early, give the rest of your team some armor and MR. Can be a lot of power. So, and they do stack, by the way. You can stack these items. So Protector's Vow should be fun, and hopefully a lot healthier and more fun to build than Frozen Heart. So there's some other adjustments. The only other really one I wanted to highlight for the picture is Spear of Shojin. Spear of Shojin always felt like this item that, like, you felt like you had to build to get your Ao Shen to cast, but it felt bad because you lost out on the potential damage. And so it was, like, kind of frustrating to be in that situation. So a lot of the times we found players just skipping the Spear of Shojin, praying they could get that. And what ended up happening is Spear of Shojin became only a utility item. Like, you were happy to build this on a Lulu or a Sona, but not so much the damage carriers. So what we've done is we've lowered the amount of mana you got per auto from 8 to 5. Also makes it very easy to calculate. But you also get 30 AP. So now, if you put a Shojin on an Ao Shen, you'll feel alright about it. Maybe there's actually even a Spear of Shojin Ao Shen build that you're, like, happy with and actually doing some cool damage. So won't be as much of a trade-off now to run Spear of Shojin. Some other item changes, nothing too big. Archangel's Staff now shows the AP bonus instead of the stacks. It's just more clear that, like, oh, that's 60 AP, not 3. Deathblade gets a buff. With this set and how we want to balance things, we can actually buff AD back a little bit now after the AD changes, so Deathblade gets a buff. Gambler's Blade. This one's interesting, and these numbers may change, but Gambler's Blade basically was the least fun Shimmer scale. You know, you would drip feed 1 or 2 gold per fight if you were lucky, and it just really was never nearly as exciting as, say, Draven's Axe, or even the needlessly big gem, which gave you that ascension power. So what we're doing here is we're actually lowering the base AP and attack speed a bit. It goes from 30 to 10, so not a bit, a lot. But we're doubling the amount of gold it drops. So this should be a big swing to make Gambler's Blade something you're actually excited to get in the early game. Ionic Spark, we removed the aura item tag. It wasn't actually doing anything. Last Whisper gets 10% attack speed. That should make it a little more good to play. You won't feel as bad if you have to put it on like an AP user, for example. They'll still get some benefit from it. Rabadon's Death Cap gets a 5 AP buff. No big deal. And now the big one. This is a biggie. Ragewing Emblem, which used to be Spatula plus Bow, is now Swift Shot Emblem. This should be really fun. It's basically super RFC. It's buildable now. And so now your fantasies of like Swift Shot Skarner or Swift Shot Olaf should be a lot more fun and easy to achieve. It's transformative. We like transformative emblems. That should be cool. The other big change here, and this one's less transformative, but honestly it's just healthier for the game, is Spatula plus Glove is going to go from Assassin Emblem to Lagoon Emblem. So you'll be able to make another Lagoon champion, which gives you that AP attack speed, you know, not nearly as transformative, but the reality is we don't want Assassin Emblem to be quite so buildable and easy to achieve. Kind of like Whisper's Emblem, we want it to be something you rarely get and can power spike, not we have to balance all these champions around it. Assassin Graves in particular, very good by the way, if you can ever pull it off. Now, Ragewing Emblem has just been removed from the game. It's gone. It's a trap emblem. No one ever found a really good use for it. And we get it. Being monolocked for 4 seconds is just not really good. So it's gone. Assassin Emblem is still around. It's just an elusive emblem now. So, you know, you can still get it through augments, Tome of Traits, things like that. It's just going to be a lot less common. Speaking of augments, augments wasn't a big focus for us this mid-set. Augments are generally in a pretty good place, and honestly, we want to spend a little more time balancing what we have versus making a bunch of new ones, but we did make some changes that are worth talking about and definitely put some time in, and there's some fun stuff in here. All right, first off, Assassin Crest, that's the gold one, gone. Again, with it being an elusive emblem and being balanced around that, too easy to get. You can still get the emblem via the Prismatic, much like the, you know, Whisper's emblem example, but not at gold. High Roller is gone. For a couple reasons, kind of like Golden Ticket before with Astral. High Roller does some pretty wonky stuff with Namzi in particular, so High Roller's gone. Makeshift Armor and Meditation. These augments are fine, they need a break right now. They're not really the most exciting traits, and Meditation in particular, when it's good, is like really unhealthy. So we're taking these out for now. They may be back at a future date. Phony Frontline, same thing. It's nothing bad, just taking it out for now, doing a rotation here. Dragon Alliance and Horde, pretty redundant since you can play as many dragons as you want, so they're gone. We've re-added Golden Ticket. With Astral gone, Golden Ticket can come back. If you want Golden Ticket for those rerolls, it's back. Woohoo! Battle Mage is back. Now, Battle Mage was never one of the most fun augments, but it's been a little different this time. Instead of just AP, you actually get armor in AP. So you can run those frontline AP comps. Things like Shyvana work really well with this. But yeah, definitely check that out. Jace is another one you can run with this. It's really good. But yeah, so it's kind of like Best Friends, but frontline. Cool. Binary Airdrop gets a small buff. You get an extra component. No big deal. Cluttered Mind. We tried it at 3. It was underpowered. We tried it at 4. It was overpowered. So we're going back to 3, but we're buffing it by helping you fill your bench a little. So when you get it, you'll get 3 tier 1 champions. So that'll help you start to fill your bench. You can get to that Cluttered Mind state quicker, but it doesn't really need to be as good as it is right now on live. Knife's Edge is back. There's a lot of champions this set that can use it, with Warriors being better. Knife's Edge can be pretty good. We've lowered the AD quite a bit. Knife's Edge 1 was pretty wonky, but Knife's Edge is back if you want to try it out. Penitence was a augment that basically no one ever took. It's back, but now it also makes your Jade emblem or your Jade augment explosions do 100% more damage. Should be a sizable buff if you want to run 7 Jade, have those 3 things in the front line and do some big damage. That can work really well. Reckless Spending has been changed to Pay to Win. Yes, if you saw my tweet causing a panic about adding Pay to Win at TFT, I was trolling. We're just adding Pay to Win because it's an augment. Basically, reckless spending was too hard to play. Spending 6 gold a turn was way too high an ask. Now all you have to do is press refresh once. No big deal. And if you press refresh once, everyone who's a shimmer scale or holding a shimmer scale item gains 35% extra damage. Should be a lot easier to use. Still only appears on 3-2. Also remember, shimmer scale's a lot easier to slot in now, so should be good. And then finally, the one I'm the most excited for, Kent did some really good work here with Woodland Charm. Woodland Charm is back. It's a prismatic, but the rules have changed. The clone now spawns during planning phase. So right away, you have a clone that you can move around, you can position, you can do whatever you want from it. And the clone has the exact same base stats as the cloned units, benefits from all of its traits, but it just can't hold items. That's the only difference. So for example, if you have a 2-star Siphon and you get Woodland Charm, guess what? You have 2 2-star Siphons. It still clones the unit with the highest HP, but especially with dragons, I think this augment's really good and really fun. And so having that extra clone can do some pretty cool things. And again, it benefits from traits. It's just like a normal unit. So let us know if Woodland Charm's a lot better this time around. All right. Like I said, we didn't add a ton of new augments, but here's the full list. Nothing crazy here. I'm just going to run through these pretty quickly. Lagoon Heart, +1 Lagoon. Darkflight Heart, +1 Darkflight. Soul Siphon. Darkflights benefit from the topmost trait of the sacrificed unit. It does not increase the trait count for that trait. A really interesting example of this is if you sacrifice a Nyla, who is an assassin, or excuse me, it's the topmost, so it'd be Lagoon, then everyone benefits from Lagoon. So you have to figure out that topmost trait and what you can do there. It's kind of a complicated one to use, but give it a try and see what kind of wild combinations you can come up with. Consistency is an interesting one. It doubles your streak gold. So if you can go on a win or loss streak with consistency, you can get a lot of gold here. It's a pretty good econ augment. Birthday present. I think this one's a little OP. We'll see if I'm right. Basically, every time you level up, you get a free 2-star champion. That champion's tier is equal to your level -4. So for example, if you level up to, you go from 3 to 4, you will get a 2-star 1 cost. You go from 4 to 5, you will get a 2-star 1 cost. You go from 5 to 6, 6 minus 4 is 2, you get a 2-star 2 cost. And yes, this means if you can make it all the way to 9, the second you hit 9, birthday present will give you a 2-star 5 cost. So, really good way to spike your board. And I think if you play it right, you can use it to power up your board. It's kind of like true 2s, but less front-loaded. So give it a try. I think it's really good. All right, Scoped Weapons 1. Your units that start in the back 2 rows gain +2 attack range and 15% attack speed. So maybe put like your Olaf in the back 2 rows, +2 range. They almost have built-in swift shot. Could do some really fun stuff. Maybe a Skarner. I don't know. I'm looking forward to Scoped Weapons Skarner. Protector of the Cosmos. Your team gains a 30 health shield for every item component equipped on Astral champions. Basically, it turns Astral into scrap. Pretty fun. Darkflight Crest, you get a Darkflight Emblem. Darkflight Emblems are really fun because remember, they get that bonus health, so it's almost as powerful as a Warmog's, and they get the bonus item from the Darkflight Sacrifice. So Darkflight Crest is pretty fun. All right, Dragon Imperialist. This is one of the new ones here. If you only have 1 dragon, your dragon will execute enemies they damage who are below 25% health, gaining Nomsy. So if you're willing to only run 1 dragon, that dragon can execute. Really good on things like Deja. Deja's probably my favorite for this. Aurelian Soul's not bad with this. Nomsy's not bad with this. Soam, actually. If you're running a vertical lagoon with Soam, this is really good. So check that out. Dragonmancer Conference. Instead of Mage Conference, we have Dragonmancer Conference. After player combat, a random Dragonmancer appears on your bench. If you've ever wanted 6 golden Dragonmancers, here you go. Hero in Training. The Dragonmancer nearest to the Dragonmancer hero gains 50% of the Dragonmancer's bonuses. This one's really fun, right? You run 6 Dragonmancer. Maybe you put the hero as Lee Sin. He's got all those bonus stats. Stand him next to the Volibear. The Volibear gets half those bonus stats. You got a powerful team. Lagoon Crest. You get a Lagoon Emblem. High Tide. Until they cast twice, Lagoon champions have 30% reduced attack speed, but gave 12 mana per second. So this helps them cast quite a bit. Fill up that Sea Stone. Pretty fun. Oasis, every 5 seconds, Lagoon champions remove all negative effects on themselves and heal for 18% of their missing health. So, pretty cool there. Essence Theft. Mages' attacks drain 8 mana from their target and gain half the drained mana. So if you want to run mages and need some mana, that's a pretty cool one. Base Camp. Scale Scorns gain 8% damage each time they start combat in the same hex, stacking up to 4 times. So if you remember Sniper's Nest, it's Sniper's Nest for Scale Scorn. Cool. You get the 4 rings, you get some power, should be good. And then Terrify. Your units take 15% less damage from enemies shrunken by Whisper's champions. Cool. Finally, we have the Prismatics, and there's some fun ones in here. We get to start off right away with, I think this one's wild, but here it is. Thief's Gloves will always give your champions the items that they can use well. So if you put a Thief's Gloves on an Itis, you will always get some combination of like Warmogs, Bramble, Dragon Claws, Gargoyle Stoneplate, Redemption, stuff like that. It makes your Thieves' Gloves super items. Then you gain a Thieves' Gloves. Get this Augment on 2-1, build as many Thieves' Gloves as you can. You will have a very powerful, efficient team. Fun stuff. Woodland Charm we already talked about. Scoped Weapons 2, same thing, but infinite range. You ever want an Olaf or a Skarner with infinite range? Scoped Weapons 2. Part-Time Assassins. The Assassin trait grants its bonuses to your champions that start combat in the back 2 rows. So what you can do is you can run 2 or 4 Assassin, put an Itis in the front line, put everyone else in the back line, doesn't matter their traits, and they will all jump to the back line and do some cool stuff. So give that a try. Darklight Crown, Darkflight Emblem, Giant Slayer Rengar. Age of Dragons. If you only have dragons, meaning you're running only dragons, nothing else, every 5th attack from a dragon fires a Dragon Soul Blast. For those of you that played back in set 4, remember that Dragon Soul Blast? That would deal magic damage equal to 15% of their target's mass health. And here's the wild part. When you get this augment, it gives you a Nomsy, a Zippy, and a random tier 4 dragon. This can only happen at 3-2. But what this means is right away at 3-2, level 6, you've got a 3 dragon comp. You've got a 3 dragon comp, and they're firing these Dragon Soul Blasts. And so if you want to run a dragon vertical comp, this is pretty fun. Dragon Soul, your team counts as having 1 additional dragon. This is really powerful because remember, 4 dragon basically gives you a +1 army slot. So being able to get to that with only 3 dragons, very powerful here. And that opens up a lot of cool comps here. So if you can get Dragon Soul, definitely consider it. Lagoon Crown, gain a Lagoon Emblem. And then Ragewing Soul, this is just a rework because instead of a Ragewing Emblem, you get +1 Ragewing. You get the Ginsus, and you get the Rakan. So yeah, like I said, not a ton of new augments or anything, but I think a few fun ones here. Woodland Charm's my personal favorite. I really like that one. Scoped Weapons is also a lot of fun, so definitely check them out. And that's it. That is the rundown. We made it through. Obviously, there's lots of other stuff to talk about here, like these cool cosmetics. By now, hopefully you've seen some of the articles and all the spoilers people have been talking about, but a lot of really cool stuff here. Wait till you see the Dragonmancer Lee Sin finisher. If you haven't seen that by now, that's a lot of fun. But yeah, we're hoping this mid-set feels like a pretty big improvement overall. I've been having a lot of fun in playtest. Just being able to play more than 1 dragon makes things a lot more flexible. You can play around, but you hit a lot more. I'm hoping the depth goes up dramatically. The breakpoints also being a lot more flexible. From a competitive standpoint, I think it's more fun. Again, our goal here is like, the people who are playing Dragonlands and have stuck around, we want to reward you and make sure you're having even more fun. So that's our goal. So cool. PBE opens up tomorrow. Don't ask when exactly. It'll be up when it's up. Nagging doesn't make it come quicker. Once PBE is up, if you've never done this with us before, basically every day there will be patches for about a week. Then after a week, we won't touch it. There'll be a stabilization period. 1 more last round of balance changes, and then it'll go live 2 weeks after. So should be a lot of fun. Enjoy the games, learn the things, report bugs, let us know. I'm sure there are bugs. I'm sure there's things that aren't balanced. But yeah. All right. On behalf of the entire TFT team, we hope you're looking forward to Uncharted Realms. Thank you so much for watching and enjoying TFT and supporting us so that we can keep growing and the team can keep doing awesome things so that we'll be around for another many, many, many sets for years to come. Cool. All right, that's going to do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.